What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Danger here, no monster. See, on the rare occasion, I will jump on and do a second breakfast just to give Monster a second breakfast break. See, second breakfast came about because we had another podcast that folded, and while we were doing that podcast, we actually started Breakdowns for Breakfast. And so when we relaunched on our own, we had all these, backup episodes, all these older episodes that we were wanting to put out. So we were putting those out on Thursday. And then those came to an end, and people seemed to really like Thursday content, so we decided to keep it up and fully embrace the nerd side of us and call it Second Breakfast because we thought it was clever, and we like Lord of the Rings. So if you want to know where the name came from, that's where. But anyway, I wanted to jump on because I had a conversation recently that was pretty interesting. So I was talking to an old friend who I haven't seen in a long time, and he was asking what I've been up to. Now, this is a guy that I used to run around and party with and whatever, and quite frankly, I had a lot of fun with him. But I feel like I would have felt differently about him had I known one thing. So when I told him about the podcast, and well, he asked how the podcast was going, and then I let him know that the Is For podcast had folded, and we had been going full steam ahead and really diving into Breakdowns for Breakfast. And he was asking about what Breakdowns for Breakfast is. He remembers seeing some Breakdowns episodes pop up when we were doing the Is For podcast. And so I told him it was an album review show of sorts. We really dive into music, with Monster being a working musician, me not being a working musician, of course, but, having gone to school for music and been involved in music, and Monster's been the same. And he's, so we come to the table with a little bit of knowledge, more than just, two guys that are fans. But anyway, so I was explaining all this to him, and he said something to me that it hurt me in my soul, it hurt me in here. He said, yeah, music's just not really a thing. Music's not really that big of a deal to me. Now I realize that music is not a big deal to a lot of people, and that's fine, but it should be. And I think that more people are a fan of music, or at least the music in certain situations, which I find, that you're able to pick better music for situations if you, listen to more albums, listen to more music. I'll give you an example. I'll give you my supporting argument. So could you imagine circus music being played at the wrong time in a movie? The killer is coming for the girl, whatever, and she is sitting on her couch reading a book, and he is in the background. Can you imagine, Prince's Purple Rain, or, Michael Jackson's Beat It or something like that being played at that time? Not unless it's like in movie and that's the song she's listening to while she's reading, which that'd be very distracting to listen to while reading a book. But regardless, so yeah, I think everybody is actually more into music than what they think they are. They just haven't found the right music yet. I know that everybody has a type of music they like. Now, when I'm getting to know somebody and conversation comes up about music, it's, what kind of music do you like? And they say, oh, I like everything. No, bullshit. You don't like everything. Nobody pops on a polka record and, well, I say nobody, but most people are not going to pop on a polka record and listen to that to relax or whatever. No. Tell me what kind of music you like. Do you tend to listen to heavier stuff, and sometimes, a pop song comes on, you're okay with it? What is your main focus of music? And then what are the outliers that, sometimes get thrown in there that you do enjoy? But yeah, I do not believe when people say that they're not really into music. Now, I understand not everybody is into music the same way that I am, the same way that Monster is, same way that Mrs. Danger, Mrs. Monster is. But, I know Mrs. Danger actually has, I forget what the name of it is, and I should have looked up before recording this, but I know Mrs. Danger has a thing where certain music will actually give her goosebumps and she'll have a physical response to it. I don't have that. Never have, never will. There usually needs to be a visual component to it. I have gotten goosebumps on on music videos and things at times. I've had physical, emotional responses to those things. But also the music that is picked for a scene in a movie is going to determine if it is really more of an emotional scene. It's going to have that emotional impact, or if it's a romantic scene or whatever. Music is important to those things. So, the background sounds that we pick to life are eminently important and should never be ignored. So the next time you meet somebody and they say, music is not that big of a deal to me. I don't really, listen to a lot of music. I don't put a lot of thought into music. Bullshit. 100%. Because music can create the way a scene in a movie, the way a memory, feels, just like smells can. Smells can take you back to a certain point. Songs can take you back to a certain point. Hell, for me, a song or an album will, put me into an entire place in life. I'll give you an example. So one of my favorite bands is the Smashing Pumpkins. Absolutely love the Smashing Pumpkins. I have a Smashing Pumpkins tattoo. Yeah, right here. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see that Today's the Greatest. It's their song Today off of Siamese Dream. I remember being, I think it was 13 years old. Yeah, and I was at my friend's grandmother's house, and he was playing Smashing Pumpkins' Bullet with Butterfly Wings, and that got me. That song is the song that kind of set me on a path. Now, growing up in a house with a dad that played music constantly, a mom that played music constantly, dad was much more into, what would be considered classic rock and blues, whereas mom was way more into disco and also blues. And so there was crossover within that, but I was exposed to plenty of music within that. But then also, they let us have the freedom to, pick what music we wanted to play. Of course, I always tried to play my my loud and angry music at a reasonable volume, but I feel deeply that they still hated every minute of it, and fine. But then my brother always listened to I would say 90s R&B and hip hop, and that was pretty much where he lived. And then he also dove into country music quite a bit, and got a long theory on that as well. But anyway, so yeah, I do think that people have more memories tied to music or a song or a sound or whatever than they actually think. Music just isn't something that's prioritized by a lot of people. And that's okay, as long as they're prioritizing other things and making other things important in their life. But to those of us who music is important to, that definitely should be paid more attention to. Anyway, if music is important to you, I highly recommend you checking out Breakdowns for Breakfast. If you are checking out Breakdowns for Breakfast, I highly recommend you go listen to an episode on an album that you don't know. Now, I understand not everybody's going to listen to every episode of a podcast. Hell, I don't listen to every episode of a podcast. Confused Breakfast, we had Sean on from the Confused Breakfast. I think I know we talked about Queens of the Stone Age, Era Vulgaris. Great episode. Love Breakdowns for Breakfast. But I don't listen to every episode, because if I don't know the movie or haven't seen the movie, I don't listen to it. I have listened to some that I don't know, and it was a mistake because it did spoil things for me, but it made me want to go watch the movie. So, if you are a listener of Breakdowns for Breakfast, first, thank you. Do appreciate it. I appreciate anybody who listens to an episode, anybody who engages. If you watch on, if you listen to an episode on one of the many streaming services, or if you check out Second Breakfast on YouTube, thank you. I do appreciate it. If you engage anyway, super appreciative of all that. More people should. They should. But yeah, so I haven't listened to every episode of their podcast, and I don't plan on it. And I don't, I can't blame anybody who doesn't listen to every episode of our podcast. I know quite a few people who have said they listen to episodes on albums that they know. But we also have a habit of picking albums that are not the most, hit worthy albums, the albums that didn't do the best, but still deserve a conversation. Our first episode, Finch's Say Hello to Sunshine. Say Hello to Sunshine was not a popular album. It was not a commercial success. Their first album, the What It Is to Burn, it was. And it's a good album. I do like that album. Monster, not a fan. But I like that album a lot. So does Mrs. Danger. But regardless of all of those things, if you listen to the episode, if you listen to any episode, appreciate it. You should go check out some other episodes on albums that you don't know. For sure. You should. But anyway. So Monster will be back next week. So if you really love Monster and his episodes, that's fine. Go, comment on his episodes. Tell him. Comment on this episode and tell him. He'll see it. I know he checks the YouTube comments a lot more than I do. But yeah. Thank you for listening and have a good day.
What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.